guys, welcome back to my channel. Simone here. So today I'm going to be doing my June wrap up, and when this video goes up, I'm not entirely sure when it will actually go up, but my birthday is the 1st of July, so it will either have happened already or be about to happen, but either way I'm really excited and I'll be 25, so I'm going to be old. I have a feeling this video will go up on the 2nd of July, so possibly it's already happened, it's over. So yeah, but either way I'm really excited and I can't quite believe that it's July already. But anyway, this month I read 10 books, which is kind of a normal month for me right now, like I seem to be doing that, which was great. Some of them were fantastic, but I also had a few dud books this month, which was a bit rubbish. But yeah, anyway, let's get started. So the first book that I read this month was Shadow and Bone by Leigh Bardugo. Now you'll know if you watched my May wrap up that I read Six of Crows last month by Leigh Bardugo, and everyone had told me that you should really read the Grisha trilogy before Six of Crows. But I didn't want to because I liked Six of Crows and I read it, so I don't mind. But anyway, I thought I'd better read the Grisha trilogy really, so I started with the first one, which is Shadow and Bone. I gave this book a 4 stars. I did enjoy it, but definitely not as much as Six of Crows. Then it's kind of to be expected because Leigh Bardugo's writing has obviously improved, and she's matured as she's kind of written more books, so I wouldn't imagine that I would love her older books more because obviously, like I say, she's kind of expanded on it. And also she knows the world better, I guess. This book has one of my favourite villains in it, which is the Darkling. I have watched a lot of videos where Samantha at Thoughts on Tome, whose channel I shall link below, and basically she's always talking about how the Darkling is her favourite villain character. And I can completely understand why. He's really likeable, but kind of in a bad way, I guess, but in a kind of like great way. It's really weird to explain, but I really love him. I like the characters in this generally. I think they're great. Like I said, it just wasn't as good as Six of Crows for me. Six of Crows I kind of feel more for all the characters, whereas in the Shadow and Bone book it was more like 1 or 2 specific characters as opposed to like all of them. But either way I really loved it, and it was interesting to see some more background to the Grisha world in this book. The second book that I read this month was Doing It, Let's Talk About Sex by Hannah Witten. Now Hannah Witten is a YouTuber that I really love. I watch her videos all the time. She talks about sex, she talks about gender equality, she talks about feminism, she talks about so many different things, and this is basically a book talking about many different sections of sex. This book has like sections on all sorts of different things, so you have virginity, consent, porn, masturbation, contraception, body image, sex shaming, and LGBTQ plus, a chapter about that as well. So this is really good. I didn't really learn lots and lots about new things in here just because I did know a lot of it already, but then I think that's because I'm quite well versed on such things. Obviously I did learn some things. There were some personal sort of anecdotes about Hannah herself, which was interesting. I did give this book a 3-star just because I did find it a little bit, in parts it was a little bit textbooky rather than completely, it didn't feel like a book had been written for enjoyment in some parts. Like most of it was very enjoyable. There were a few sections where I felt like it was more, because she was trying to get the information across, I guess, but it was more kind of like facts and figures as opposed to anecdotes and things like that, which I probably would have preferred more of. But either way I really did like this, and it is a 3-star book for me. The next 3 books are actually going to be my 3 dud books, massive duds. I gave 2 of them a 1-star and 1 of them a 2-star. Which just sort of tells you whereabouts I'm going with this. I don't have copies of any of these books because I got them all from the library, so the pictures will come up here, of course. The first was actually a book I was really excited to read, and that was The Leaving by Tara Altebrando. When I picked this book up, I'd heard so much about it. It's a thriller which I adore. It was about these 6 kids that go missing, and then they come back and there is 5 of them back and 1 of them is still missing, and then they can't really remember anything that happened to them, and they're trying to piece it together, and then they're trying to figure out where this other one has gone. I would have liked it, I think the storyline probably, but the writing was awful. I could not get into the swing of it. It was way too like bitty, and the writing was all over the place, and I really didn't like it. It wasn't for me. I think some people would love it. It would be a book that some people absolutely adore, but I do think it's a Marmite book where some people love it and some people hate it. And unfortunately, I fall on the hate side of it and really did not like this book. And I gave this one a 1 star. Then I have another 1-star read, which again was because of the writing, and I'm really sad about this one. It is There But For There by Ali Smith. I've heard about Ali Smith's books on Lauren and the Books channel, and also Amy Jane Smith, and I love both their channels, and I think that they're fantastic, and they always talk about these books. Winter, I think it is, and Autumn by Ali Smith, and maybe I'm going to try and read them and see what I think. But the writing in this, I mean, the storyline was basically that a man goes to a dinner party one day, and then he goes up into the room upstairs, like the bedroom of the people whose house he's gone to, and he stays there for months, and over time it's about how the sort of local people sort of deal with it, or how they like cope with it, or how they talk about it and their reaction to it, which is an interesting premise. It was not something I would have ever normally have picked up, but again, because I'd been recommended Ali Smith books before, I kind of thought, oh, maybe I'll like it. And then I read it, and the writing was it was weird. I don't know if you call it stream of consciousness or what, but I really didn't like it. And I think I'm going to struggle to pick up another Ali Smith book. I would love to, just to find out if it's just her writing I'm not a fan of, but at the moment I'm not motivated to do that. And then I have a 2-star book called I Call Myself a Feminist, The View from 25 Women Under 30, and this is edited by Victoria Pepe? I don't know how you say her name. But it's basically a load of people's kind of first-hand essays and quotes about feminism from their point of view. Now, I think I've mentioned before that I don't know a whole lot about feminism. I know kind of the basic stuff, and it's not something I ever really looked into or have been completely motivated to pick up. But anyway, I watched Lauren in the Books channel. She talked about this book, she really liked it, and I picked it up, and it just really, maybe it just wasn't really what I wanted at the time when I was reading it. I found it to be just very preachy, and I know that's awful because feminism is an important thing, and you know, there are kind of devout feminists, and for me it was too, like, I just didn't care, and that sounds awful, I know, but I was reading it thinking I just wish I was reading like a novel, like I just wasn't into it, and so I read some. I don't think I completely finished the book, just because, like I said, there was like little stories as opposed to it being like a longer thing. Maybe I would have liked it if it was one long memoir or something rather than it being little bits about different people, but either way I just wasn't a fan, so I gave that a 2-star. The next book I read was carrying on with my Chronicles of Narnia reread, and I read Prince Caspian by C.S. Lewis, which is officially book 4 in the series. This is the 3rd one I've reread. Basically, this follows a young Prince Caspian who, basically, his uncle has wrongly taken the throne in his place and cast him out, basically, and he uses the forces of Narnia, such as the talking beasts and all the people from different places in Cair Paravel, and basically is trying to get back against his uncle so that he can rightfully take his throne. And obviously this has some of the original Pevensey children. In fact, it has all of them. It has Susan, Peter, Edmund and Lucy, and they're all in it. So it was really nice because this is the kind of one where all of the originals are back in it, and the one I read just before this was Voyage of the Dawn Treader, which didn't have Susan or Peter in it, so it was really cool for me to go back a bit and see all of them again. I really liked this book. I gave this a 3-star. Again, I find it difficult to give these books more than 3-star just because they are very middle grade, and it's not really kind of where I'm at with my reading right now, but I loved it all the same, and it's very nostalgic, and I will be continuing my rereads probably next month. Then next up I have a book that I talked about in my current favourites video that was out last week, and that is The Art of Being Normal by Lisa Williamson, which follows David, who is a woman trapped in a man's body, and he wants to be a woman and is sort of doing all the things that he can do without actually having to tell his parents. And then basically one day he gets into a kind of situation in the school cafeteria where he's being bullied, and then this boy Leo stands up for him, and basically their friendship kind of goes from there, and then it's about kind of how they deal with it, and there's a lot of secrets that kind of come out, and it's so interesting. I think I mentioned in that video that I have never read a transgender book before. I say transgender, but a book about transgender people. I've read one book, but I can't talk about it because it's not kind of out there in the synopsis, if you know what I mean. This book was fantastic. It was really welcoming. It really opened my eyes to I know obviously we've all heard of kind of like Caitlyn Jenner and, you know, these people that we see in the news and we see on television that are transgender, but I haven't really seen it represented a lot in books, so this was definitely interesting for me. I don't think this is an Own Voices book. No, so Lisa Williamson is not a transgender person herself, but she worked for a charity that dealt with people who were going through such things, so that's how she's kind of come from this. I haven't heard a lot about whether this is sort of true to life or whether this is a good representation, so I would be really interested to know your thoughts if you have read this and if you think it is or it isn't, because obviously I'd like to be informed. Either way, I did really enjoy this, and I gave this a 5-star. Next up is a book that I was buddy reading with my sister, and I can finally say that I've read this book. For so long I've been like, oh, I've read all these books but I haven't read this one, and I probably should. And it is The Fellowship of the Ring by J.R.R. Tolkien, which is the first book in the Lord of the Rings trilogy. I've watched the films of this so many times and I love them, and I've never ever read the books, and so me and my sister decided, because she's read it before I think, but we decided that we were going to read it together, and I really enjoyed this. J.R.R. Tolkien is not a man of few words, let's put it that way. He likes to, I mean, why write one word when you can write 10? I mean, he's such a descriptive author. So I gave this a 4-star just because there was so much description. Some of it I was a bit like, this is too much, like, you could just get to the point now. But basically I thought this book was great. I assume most people know what the Lord of the Rings is about, but it's about a kind of ring that is in the possession of Frodo now, that his grandfather, that his uncle gave him, his uncle being Bilbo Baggins, the Hobbit in the Hobbit film and the Hobbit book even. But this basically follows him essentially trying to get rid of the ring by going on this massive long trip and this like trek to all these different places, and meets all these different people and different creatures, and it's just great. It's really good fantasy. Again, I've not really read a lot of fantasy, kind of like adult fantasy. I've read a lot of like YA fantasy, if anything. But I'm definitely interested in continuing the series because I've really loved reading this one, and I think me and my sister will probably read the next one soon as well, so yeah. Then another book that I talked about in my favourites, which I don't have anymore because I took it back to the library, in fact this morning, and that is Under the Dome by Stephen King. Now this book was 880 pages long, and it did take me quite a chunk of time to read, so I'm quite proud of myself that I still managed to read 10 books this month with such a chunky book as well. But basically this follows the town of Chester's Mill, where this dome has just arrived, where essentially this dome has just sort of arrived over the top of the town, and nothing can get in and nothing can get out. So that's people, that is amenities, like they have nothing. And it's about town politics, and it's about the kind of who should do what, and it's so interesting, and it's about them trying to figure out what this dome is and how they can get rid of it. But there's also lots of little infighting going on and all sorts of things. I really love Stephen King's writing. This is my 3rd Stephen King book, and I've given them all 5 stars so far. I think when I was younger, I obviously heard a lot about Stephen King, but I was always terrified that the books were going to be scary. But I've read now 3 books, and none of them have been that scary. I've kind of read his thriller books so far. I do have The Shining to read soon, so I'm sure that will be terrifying. But I feel like I'm kind of building myself up to that, so that's alright. But yeah, I really liked the Under the Dome book, and I would definitely recommend it. And then the last book that I read this month was fantastic, and again I was kind of sceptical going into it, and that was Dark Places by Gillian Flynn. Now, I read Gone Girl by Gillian Flynn I think last year, and I loved it, but I feel like when you love an author's first book, or the first book that you've read of them, you kind of expect that the others are not going to be great, because you kind of feel like, well, Gone Girl's the hyped one and everyone talked about it, and nobody really talks that much about the others, so they're probably not great, and there's probably a reason for them not talking about it. But I kind of think I prefer this to Gone Girl. Not lots, like, they're really close, but I do sort of prefer it. This follows Libby Day, who is a 31-year-old lady, and when she was 7 years old, her mother and her 2 older sisters were murdered, and she managed to escape, essentially, by hiding. And she testifies at her at the time 15-year-old brother's trial, saying that it was him that did it. Then, 25 years later, she gets a phone call from this club called the Kill Club, who basically are investigating what happened because they believe that her brother Ben is innocent. And then she then is basically investigating what happened because she is starting to think maybe she was wrong, but then she's also kind of starting to think, well, maybe the reason why she's so determined that it was wrong is because she wants him to be out so that she cannot be alone anymore. And so it's really, really overwhelming and brilliantly written. This cover is so bright, it's actually hurting my eyes, and I'm only looking sideways at it. But anyway, I love this. I've also got Sharp Objects like on my shelf to read really soon, so I will definitely be doing that, and yeah, I can't wait. So this was definitely a great one, and I gave this 5 stars. So that is my wrap up for June. I've had a really good reading month this month, even though I had a few disappointments right at the start. But let me know in the comments below what you read in June and which was your favourite book. And if you've read any of the books that I have talked about, I would love to hear your thoughts on them. So give this video a thumbs up if you liked it, and subscribe if you haven't already. And I shall see you in my next video. Bye guys!